Notice in accordance with COPPA regulations, this episode of Quoth the Raven is intended for ages 16 and up. While some of the content we will feature is kid-friendly, the context of the episode is to address adults, inform them of said content for them to research as consumers in service of their youth, in other words, parents, grandparents, aunts and uncles, teachers, librarians, etc. There is the possibility of adult language present on the episode as well, rated TV 16 and up. And welcome once again, ladies and gentlemen, to Quoth the Raven, Lewis Bright Raven. I'm your host, Lewis Bright Raven, 28-year veteran of comics, science fiction, fantasy, and horror as a writer, illustrator, and editor. And it's our Monday comics review show, so let's get straight to it. We start this week with back issue number 125, $9.95. From Tomorrow's Publishing. The writers are various interviewers and article writers. The artists featured are Matt Wagner, Colleen Dorn, Laurie Welch, Steve Purcell, Stan Sakai, James Dean Smith, and others. The genre is Interview and Historical Review magazine, released last week, February 10th, 2021. And what it's about? Well, this is basically as close to the perfect historical comics review magazine that I've ever seen. So we've got well-documented discussions with Matt Wagner on Grendel and Mage, Stan Sakai on Usagi Yojimbo, A Distant Soil with Colleen Doran, Sam and Max Mysteries with Steve Purcell, and Boris the Bear with James Dean Smith, and Trey Pop-Tart with Larry Welch. Now, the other ones are shorter than the Grendel and than the Wagner and Sakai interviews, but they're all very well done, very worthwhile reads. And I didn't see a weak article in the magazine. Usually, especially with when back issue has a theme, there are one or two articles I'm not so keen on. But that's partly because I get tired of reading about the same thing, same topic over and over. But because this is about different creators and titles, it kept me very well engaged. Really enjoyed the book. And even when a topic is glossed over, or it's clear the creator being interviewed doesn't want to discuss a certain topic at all, James D. Smith pretty much refused to talk about Mike Richardson or Dark Horse, other than they had a major falling out, which is why we haven't seen any Boris the Bear collections, for example. I really didn't feel like any article cheated me out of anything. Lots of times when I read articles in these types of magazines, I'll feel there are questions that were left unasked, or there's a sense of that there's pertinent information that was edited out for space. That's probably the journalist in me. I don't know. But that's how I tend to react to a lot of the magazines. As I said, it could be just because each article was about different subjects, that this was just a perfect magazine. I recently reviewed Monkeys Fighting Robots, and I think if they followed something like this with covering indie creators combined with their original comics, that would be the perfect magazine, in my opinion. Granted, these are all old guard indie greats, but there are so many indie creators who deserve interview spotlights. And sadly, we've been losing some of them in recent time for the old guard that have really never gotten the spotlight. And then we've got plenty of up-and-comers to spotlight also. So, that's what I have to say about this issue. It's recommended for ages 15 up. I give it a 6-star rating. Yes, that's right. I gave it 6 stars, not 5, 6. That's how good this magazine is. Go get it. Next book, Future State Green Lantern number 2, $5.99. Publisher is DC Comics. Writers are Jeffrey Thorne, Josie Campbell, and Robert Venditti. The artists are Tom Rady, Andy Tong, and Dexter Soy, with colorists Mike Attier, Will Katana, and Alex Sinclair. Covered by Clayton Henry and Marcelo Mayalo. In this second, and I believe it's the final installment of the Green Lantern anthology, known as Future State, we have the conclusion of the John Stewart story from issue 1 by Jeff Thorne and Tom Rainey, a Teen Lantern story by Josie Campbell and Andy Tong, where Teen Lantern is stuck on the planet Mogo, and they have to work together to stay alive. And then Hal Jordan returns to Oa, to find the Guardians of Everybody dead, with a reveal at the end of the story that will carry into a new title. Now, Thorne and Rainey's story, well, Thorne basically did, I'm a black badass, and I can kick everyone's ass without a damn ring. Whoops, something's missing here. I don't know why. Let me see what I can find here. Ah, okay. I don't know what happened, but one of our pieces missed. Okay. Anyway, like I said, the story with Tom Rainey and Jeffrey Thorne writing, it's just, angry black man type story to me. There's a scene where he's like, yeah, I know you guys are always afraid of us, and you're always afraid of the lanterns, and I can smell the fear on you. And it had a really, I don't know if it was intended, but a really harsh overtone of black angst on it, and I just didn't think it was necessary. I don't think it really fits Jon Stewart's character. I know that they depict him as a military man all the time, but people got to remember this guy's an architect, not just an architect of buildings, but a societal architect. So it just wasn't a really particularly good story. Now, the Teen Lantern story, written by Josie Campbell and Andy Tong, that was a really nice little short story. The colors were a little bit dark. In fact, the whole book runs much too dark on the colors, in my opinion. I think Andy Tong's art was a little bit overwhelmed by the colors as a result. So I wasn't too happy about that. But, it is what it is there. And lastly, Venditti, I'm just not a big fan of that thing. I was hoping no one would else really go after using the character that's brought into the story. And that's Jo Malene from Far Sector. And her story isn't even concluded in her own series yet, and there's no good reason why she should act the way she's acting in the story and being accusatory of Hal. She barely even knows any of the rest of the Corps, has been established in Far Sector, and she's so damn far out on the outer rim of space herself that I don't see how this story is making any sense yet. Will it be continued in Green Lantern 2021 or whatever the next thing that they're pulling out? And the reality is I'm not particularly interested. Now, I always knew that eventually they're going to drag Jo Malene into the mess that is the Green Lantern brand. But I'd hoped that when they did, DC would have enough brains to avoid to hack comic book writers and let the real writers like Jemison take over the franchise. Jemison and Thorne could make the brand matter. Has-beens who have been running the property in the ground for years like Venditti, no thank you. So basically, between the coloring and the 2 weak stories, I gave it a 2.5 stars. It's recommended for ages 14 up. Let's take a quick look at the art. This is the Tom Rainey stuff. And there's, that's supposed to be Jon Stewart with a battle axe and a beard and a bony tail and stuff. And it just, I don't know. It's just not, I don't know. And here he is again, even with the battery gone, even with stuck here in wild space against all your legions, you're scared of us. You stink of fear. Yeah, you're scared of us. Well, he's saying you're scared of Green Lanterns. No, that's even though everything's good, it's like saying, you've beaten us down, you've wiped out us black people, but you're still afraid of us. That's kind of how that came across to me, and that's not what I expected of Jeff. But it happens, so it is what it is. This is the Andy Tong artwork. It's nice, but Andy's kind of an open style artist, and his art style can be, even when he does detail work, it's open, and the coloring is so dark that if you compare this work to Andy's work on a book he did called Green Lantern Legacy, where it's more I guess you could say it's more cartoony, but it's more flat colors. I think the flat colors and not just this heavy dark shading where everything gets kind of murky in the same colors palette would be a better choice for the coloring, in my opinion. And then this is the last page of the book, and this is where Joe Moline just shows up in the last page as a reveal. Where were the core? Where were you when the cores needed you? Well, as if I'm kind of like Hal Jordan does not like make the end all be all of the Green Lantern Corps, and on top of that, I just kind of I don't know. She's got her own power source separate to begin with and everything. So I don't know. I hate to see that they're going to just make her into an angry black woman or something. I don't want that. So I don't know. We'll wait and see what happens. Soy's art's okay, but Next book, Ginseng Roots #8 for $6 by publisher Uncivilized Books. Creator is Craig Thompson. The genre is biographical, and it was released February 10th, 2021. Now, it turns out that I missed reading #7. I own it, but I never got around to reading it. I had it put away somewhere, and I just never got to it. So I'm kind of out of it a little bit. Thompson has basically concluded his autobiographical tale about his youth in Wisconsin as a ginseng farmer back in issue #6, and has now moved on to tell a tale of his friend Chua Vang, or Vong, I don't know, I hope I'm not slaughtering his name, a South Korean whose family relocated to the U.S. and is one of Craig's fellow ginseng farmers when he was a kid. Now, because I didn't read #7, I was slightly lost for a few pages because I hadn't realized that the narrative was about someone else. I was looking at it and going, wait a minute, this isn't about Craig. What's going on here? Yeah. So once I realized it was about a new character, I realized that I hadn't read #7. Now, even though I hadn't read #7, the work is clear enough that this issue does stand well enough on its own. You do understand what's going on, and that's a good thing. I honestly don't like the cover of this particular issue, even though it is effective, and it offers a graphic design element that is a small key to the part of the story with the torn paper look. I just tend not to care for the distressed look on covers unless it's a really obvious fake distressed look, which is why I didn't make a big bugaboo about it on Monkeys Fighting Robots on their cover last week, because they had one that was distressed looking, but it was obvious, Now, not realizing that I was reading about someone else at first did throw me for a loop, but by page 4 or 5, I settled in back into the narrative, and it's not like Thompson failed to engage me as a reader. It's completely on me there. Vang's story is both interesting and sad. He talks about the family's history both overseas and here in the States, and the differences in their cultures and religion, and how that changed when the family came to America, which seems to be a bit thematic for Thompson because he talked about religion in his art as well. They were more of a shamanistic belief where all nature is connected when they came to the States, but the father and their family adopted Christianity, and that changed their family dynamic. Now, there are other elements of the story that I found interesting as well, like the fact that they bought a plot of land and found out that they couldn't grow anything on it because they didn't know why. And Vang was trying to find out if the land had been misused, certain pesticides used, or something else that would have prevented the ability to grow ginseng, and how he was constantly shut down and told there were no records of these things. It seems obvious that his father was taken advantage of and was sold bad goods, bad lands, but proving it's another issue. The story doesn't go too much into that because the narrative is more about how Vang, who originally wanted to do other things in his life when he was a youth, ended up assuming the family business due to farming, due to a variety of circumstances, some of which are of his own doing. I don't know if I like his story as well as I do Thompson's, but the craftsmanship of Thompson's presentation is consistently well done, and there's no drop-off of quality from the previous story arc. I've always given this series a high rating, and I see no reason not to continue to do so. So I gave it 4.5 out of 5, and I recommend it for ages 13 and up. Here's some of the artwork. And this is, at a point where he's an adult, and his father's saying, well, I gotta, he's going to retire now. And he's like, 5 or 6 years, do you want to go? You can either take over the business or you can pursue a career that you actually want. And he tells him, I've been stuck doing this my whole life. I couldn't go out to do anything now if I wanted to. Because he's been doing it, literally like 30 years. He didn't finish high school because he was always having to go work the fields and a whole lot of other things that, he didn't. I won't say he didn't stand up for himself. It's more of a situation with that culture that you honor your parents a certain way and you obey your parents a certain way. And it sometimes to stand up for yourself and break free of that can be very problematic and traumatic in a family dynamic of that nature. So he chose not to do that. And I can respect that. And but it cost him. He can't really go out and go do things now because he spent his whole life doing that one thing. And that's what he knows, basically. And I can relate to that because, even though I did have a career in my 20s, I basically put that on hold to take care of my parents. And it ended up being a lifetime venture of having to take care of my parents once they both suffered heart attacks and I became a caregiver. You try to honor your parents and it can distract you and take away from you. So I do understand that and I do relate to that. Here's another page of art from the Ginseng roots. We'll talk about the religion differences and how when they stopped going to the church and went back to the shamanistic ways, and it was kind of weird because how it affected his father and stuff like that. So yeah. Our next book is Homesick Pilots #3 for $3.99. Publisher is Image Comics. Writer is Dan Waters. Artist is Casper Wingard. Genre is horror action. What it's about: at the harrowing events of issue #2, Buzz and Rip, were two boys in the band, have different views on the fate of their friend Amy. Buzz wants to continue the search for her, his instincts telling him that she's still alive, while Rip has written her off as being truly dead. On top of this, there are, of course, outside pressures at play. The school wants to ask about Amy's disappearance, Rip getting beaten up by the cop in the last issue, other things, and these tensions drive a wedge between the two friends. Meanwhile, Amy's ghost has her own continuing adventures inside the James house and encounters a new threat. Waters is doing a respectable job in characterization for all three primary characters. He switched the story more over to Buzz's point of view, and I think that's an interesting choice considering he focused on Amy the first two issues. It does suit the narrative, as the theme of the issue is about how individuals grieve or cope with loss, and both Buzz and Rip are going through this in their own manner. But we can't have Amy be the narrator because she would then be somewhat unreliable because she doesn't know what they're thinking, and she doesn't see herself as a ghost necessarily. She thinks she's going to be able to come back, or at least wants to come back some way. So it'd be it would be ill-conceived to try and tell the story from her perspective at that point. Even so, Buzz narration isn't exactly reliable either, because he's got his emotional state and other flaws involved as well. But at least it is a natural, organic narration from his perspective. Rip is not so much. Rip is partly because he's coping by getting high, and partly because, maybe I missed something from an earlier issue, and maybe I didn't. But I believe he might be possessed by one of the spirits from the James house. The ghosts and monsters inside the James house are certainly unique as well. At least I don't recall seeing a ghost monster made out of VHS tape celluloid before. And there's a lot of interesting dynamics going on in Wingard's art. I still think that I'm going to probably walk away from the first arc, though, at least right now. But I will say that the creative team has stepped up their game with this issue, and maybe they'll change my mind by the time their arc ends. Recommended for ages 16 and up. Give it 4 out of 5 stars. And here's some of the artwork. And this is Amy going to visit Buzz while he's sleeping, trying to basically say, hey, I'm still here, and, kind of giving Buzz a sense that she's still around, I guess, alive. But she's also trying to explain why they can't find her as well. So in the meantime, but for now I'm gone, and maybe it's best for everyone to stay that way. And she says goodbye to him, basically. So, kind of a cool scene. Sad, but cool. And then this is him confronting Rip. I don't know if you guys can see it or not, but his eyes are colored a kind of a purplish color, and that's not normal. Again, there's some language in here. There's fingers. It's a mature reader's book. I do say 16 up because I think 16-year-olds can handle it, but it is more of a mature reader's title. The thing is, when his eyes glowing kind of a purplish color, that's my hint that he might be possessed by somebody. Whoops, I thought that might happen. Let's go. Not a problem. We'll just remove something here. There we go. We go on to the next book. Judge Dredd False Witness number 4. IDW Publishing, $3.99. The writer is Brandon Easton. The artist is Sylvia Califano. The colors by Ava De La Cruz. And it's post-apocalyptic science fiction action, released February 10th, 2021. And what this book is about is it concludes basically the story of Matthias Lincoln, and he's vindicated, and the judge's corruption is exposed, as if Dredd didn't already know. And the thematic presence of religion and versus law and government versus common sense is a little bit overly preachy in this book, and Dredd is more like a blunt instrument than a nuanced, satirical smartass that he's best known as. It's there. While Califano is a serviceable artist and does a good job, it's a very harsh departure in style from Kei Zama, who had been the interior artist for the entire 3 issues prior. It's very jarring and disappointing that Zama didn't finish the series. I don't know why he didn't finish the series. It doesn't really matter. The fact is, he didn't. It really kind of distracted me, and I didn't care for the last issue as a result. Rated 16 and up, 2.5 stars. This is a sample of the art, and the art is good. I'm not. There's nothing wrong with the art. It's just so completely different in stylistic from the cover. As you could, we'll go back real quick. This is Kei Zama's art on the cover, and the whole book's being done by him. And then you get this, and it's a really completely different look. And again, it's not that the artwork is bad; it's just different. And when you're used to a series that is 3 issues out of 4, that you've had that other style, and you break it to the other one, it's not cool. I'm sorry. The Mapmaker, number 1, preview issue for $1.99. This is from Scout Comics for their Scoot imprint. Writer is Ben Slabak. The artist is Francesca Carita. Genre is pirate, historical type thing. Released February 10, 2021. And basically, this is a Pirates of the Caribbean style tale where the prize is a fantastical power wielded by the mysterious individual known simply as the Mapmaker. Any map that he creates comes to life, and actually exists. Like if he decides to draw a new island somewhere, it actually pops into life, basically. Um, a power that is highly desired by King Gus, who will stop at nothing to obtain it. The crew of the privateer ship, the Rogue Wave, captained by the courageous Lei Li, are the only ones standing in their way with a mission to deliver the Mapmaker's successor before its power wanes and all is lost forever. Fun tale for all ages, is what they say. Um, it's reasonably well done. The characters are decently developed, and the style is good for all ages, as is advertised. But as it's another of Scott's preview books for $1.99, it's going to be released later as a trade paperback. I'm not going to actually give a review for this or give it a rating. I think it's something that is potentially marketable for young readers and worth checking out if your retailer happens to have it in stock to look at for yourself, go through and review, or go to the Scout Comics website and see more. This is some of the interior art. Nice little painterly digital paint type color style. The artist, Francesca Carita, has a nice way of looking at things. Nice color palettes, nice understanding of light and shadow. You might see on the third panel on the right page, you'll see that the ropes actually leave shadows on the deck. So stuff like that is nice touches. I like that. They're trying to do a nice book here, certainly. So, I would recommend looking it up, at least if your retailer has it in stock. Next book is Norse Mythology number 5, $3.99. Publisher is Dark Horse. Writers are Neil Gaiman and P. Craig Russell. Artists are David Rubin, Jill Thompson, and Galen Showman. The colorists are David Rubin, Thompson, and Laverne Kinzierski. The genre is mythology, released February 10th of 2021. What it's about? Well, there's two stories in here. The first one is Odin and the Asgardian gods trick Fenrir the wolf and bind him. Only Tyr trusts Fenrir to not be an enemy, and thus when Fenrir demands one of the gods put their hand in his mouth and if they renege on their promise to release him if he can't break free of his binds, he'll bite that person's hand off. Well, Tyr, who already said he would bet his hand on the Asgards tricking him, he puts his hand in and loses it when they can't. You can't bind them and they won't release him. And he's got Tyr's hand in his mouth, and Tyr's like, just do it. You said you were going to do it. So he takes Tyr's right hand. And you can see that on the cover as well. But, the Asgardians laugh at Fenrir once he is bound, and they walk away. But Fenrir swears vengeance and to devour the heavens, which is what happens when Ragnarok comes, basically. In the second storyline, someone has stolen Thor's hammer, and Loki is tasked with finding out whom. And so he goes to the goddess Freya and asks to borrow her cloak that can transform her into a falcon to investigate an area without being recognized or seen. Freya is reluctant, but does so anyway, and gives him the cloak, and chances are Loki will get caught anyway. We'll have to wait and see where it goes, because he just leaves as the Falcon at the end of this particular issue. As always, it is a nice adaptation of the Norse mythologies, and it's recommended for ages 16 and up, and it is 4 out of 5 stars. And here is where Fenrir broke another bunch of chains, and he goes, will they test me again? He goes, I would wager my right hand on it. And of course they do it again, and he breaks the chains again. And then here's where they got this special elvish, like, lasso of truth type rope, and they bind him with that, and he puts his hand, the other ones won't put their hands in, but of course, Tyr feels like, okay, I guess I have no choice. Love the texture of the tongue and the roof of the mouth here a little bit. It looks kind of interesting there. He's got Tyr's hand in his mouth there, and then of course he can't break free of this new binding, and like I said, he has to bite off Tyr's hand. And this is the Jill Thompson artwork for the Loki and Freya storyline. Our last book of the day is Origins, number 4 of 6 for $3.99. Boom Studios is the publisher. Writer Clay Chapman. Jacob Rebelka is the artist, with Patricio Del Peque as the colorist. Genre science fiction. Released February 10th, 2021. Pardon me, just checking something there. I thought someone had posted something, a response. Anyway, David and Chloe continue their trek across threatening terrain. This time, some of the robots who healed and worshipped David in tow as the network burns the city of the robots that they built under the ground in pursuit of David. The theme of this issue is free will. Do the robots have it or not? And does David have any obligations to them as their home is being destroyed all around them as they flee? As robots sacrifice themselves to deliver David and Chloe to safety, and David is appalled by their unwavering devotion, the narrative of the story slows down and gets a bit preachy, though I do think Chapman does do a fair job of writing different points of view between David and the robots. David is of the belief that the reason they follow him is their programming dictates it, and they don't have any free will. The robots disagree and say there isn't much reason for them to change, as they see as the network as a form of oppression in its own right, and they don't want to be part of that and enslaved to that. And the only way to end that threat is to help David. The world building is solid and the characterization is solid, but there are only 2 issues left of this arc, and I hate to say it, even though it says issue 4 out of 6, I don't believe the story ends with issue 6. I think the arc will end, but the storyline will continue. I really wish stories like these would end properly when they say it's a limited series. I'm not sure that the writer can wrap it up in 2 issues. And like I said, so I'm kind of about this. Art by Rebelka is solid, as it has been throughout. The Pelkley's color is consistent. Don't have any problem with the artwork. Again, the book's for age 16 and up. I give it 3.5 stars. I just, I hope that it ends in 2 issues, or at least has a good closing point where I can stop reading if I want and not have to continue to see what happens next. I don't know. We'll wait and see. And this is the artwork. That page that you saw sideways was this page. I had deleted it when I originally scanned it. It's it's nice stuff, And he's basically saying, this is where David's blaming himself, that the network that blew up the city, they were looking for me, not them, and it's my fault. And Chloe's like, yeah, we got to keep going anyway. This is why, type thing. So anyway, overall, that's our review show for the week. And I don't know what we're going to do on Wednesday. I'm not getting that much this week, apparently. I might get 1 book in, maybe 2, from what I've seen online. So next week will be, for Monday, will be a catch-up week on books, trades that I didn't get read from last year, basically. Thursday, our guest has not been verified yet, so I don't want to say just yet who's going to be on. I'll let you guys know on Wednesday. And on Friday, we're going to do Friday night will be our Western movies. Will be the theme for the Friday night genre talk. So if you have questions for me, You can reach me at Lewis.BrightRaven on Facebook, LewisBrightRave2 at Twitter. I don't really use Twitter all that much, but you can ask me, I guess. DeviantArt.com/BrightRaven. On YouTube at Quoth the Raven, Lewis Bright Raven. You can email me at quotheravenlbr72@gmail.com. And if you don't reach me that way, try lewisbrightraven@yahoo.com. Mondays is our comics news and reviews. I haven't really done a lot of news lately. I've just been talking about reviews mostly. Wednesdays is what did you get this week? Like I said, this week will be kind of a small, short episode probably. Thursdays is our roundtable talk with guests. And Friday night is our genre night. Each week you're supposed to be each week a different genre, sometimes with guests. I have been doing where I had a couple weeks for different genres, but I'm trying to get to the new weekly format again. Like I said, this week will be Western, will be the genre, and we'll be talking about favorite Western movies at different eras. I don't know exactly which era yet. I'm probably just going to pick a specific time frame. Okay? So I want to thank you all for watching, and we will see you guys soon. Have a good night, and I will see you guys next time.